But I also mentioned that I'm getting over a cold myself, or the flu, or whatever is bothering me. So I have some coffee with me, so we'll see how well I can get through this sermon this morning. So bear with me. So I've titled this sermon, New Church, New Ideas. And I was really inspired by a Huffington Post article that I read a few weeks ago. And I actually was over at Linda's house, and we were talking about the next couple Sundays that were going to come up, and just sort of brainstorming different ideas. And I happened to, when she and I are hanging out, we're multitasking. She's on her tablet, I'm on my cell phone, and looking at articles, and we're talking, and sometimes, she'll see something, she'll say, hey, you should hear this, or I'll read something, and say, hey, Linda, you should hear this. In this instance, it was this article from the Huffington Post, and the title grabbed me because I love when people have titles like this. It's called, Where is God? Good question. And I saw the title, and I went, where is God? And so I obviously had to click on it, and I started reading it. And as I was reading, I just went, Linda, you have to hear this. So I read the whole article to Linda, and she said, you need to do a sermon on this, based on this article, because it is really, to me, kind of, it really captures the spiritual evolution, as I would call it, what's happening right now. Before I jump into the article itself, one thing that when I'm talking to people, friends of mine, even discourse here at Hillside, something that comes up a lot is this fight between science, rationality, versus religion, spirituality. And the loudest voices, it seems to me, are the ones that have really pigeonholed themselves into one of these two camps. So when I think of the anti-religion, anti-spirituality camp, I typically think of the late Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris. And when I think of the more fundamentalist, science folks, I think of Pat Robertson. Unfortunately, his face is the first one that comes up in my mind, but Pat Robertson comes up first, followed by another series of dogmatic folks. And, as I was growing up, I personally didn't have this feeling that I needed to pick one or the other. I was really drawn to some, really nice middle ground, and felt that this fight was really for those who are stuck in one of these two opposing camps. Richard Dawkins was actually in Berkeley not too long ago. He was actually talking about his newest book, and I have it right here. Brief Candle in the Dark, My Life in Science. He was doing a talk, I believe, at Berkeley High School in their auditorium, and I unfortunately couldn't attend. I actually really wanted to go. I thought that would be really interesting to see him in person, to maybe get a chance to ask him a question. Because if you have read Richard Dawkins' very famous book, The God Delusion, he really tears apart the character of God. He has a paragraph where he basically summarizes the character of the Old Testament deity. And he throws in all of the most negative words you could think of to summarize the Old Testament deity. By the time you're finished reading this list, you're like, well, yes, this character is rather problematic, to say the least. But as you're reading the book, you realize that Dawkins is arguing about an image of God that I personally don't believe in. He's focusing on these negative qualities. And he acts like, at least in the God Delusion, which was written several years ago, that the majority of believers believe in this particular image of God. And when I finished the book, I thought, well, yes, this would probably upset someone like Pat Robertson, but it doesn't upset me. And I've noticed, not that I've been stalking Richard Dawkins on Twitter, but I do follow him on Twitter, and I noticed that when he talks about God or religion, he is fixated on this particular fundamentalist image of God. And no one has really, as far as I know, challenged him to look at things from a different perspective. To ask the question, well, what about people who don't believe in that image of God? What do you do with people like that?
He's probably raised that way, don't you think?
Perhaps. He mentions the God Delusion a number of times in this book. But I mentioned Dawkins because when I started reading this article, I realized that this article is really focused on this change, this shift in the image of God. For the author is Diana Butler Bass, and she has written a number of books about the changing belief in God. Not fundamentals. She is clear that the concept of peace, of love, has remained pretty consistent amongst a number of believers and communities of multiple religions. But the emphasis on where is God, she sees that as shifting. She begins the article by saying that for the longest time, God was this outside, distant deity, one that invoked fear, there was judgment, punishment, but he still loves you, right? And that's been a pretty consistent theme for a long time. Love is there, but you have to kind of break through a lot of what Dawkins might say, the negative qualities. But we're finding with recent Pew polls that people are leaving Orthodox organized religion by the thousands. It's just a fact. And again, when you look at a lot of the people who are discussing this, anytime I see a clip of Fox News talking about this particular poll, they are quick to say, yes, people are leaving religion and they're becoming atheists. So here you go, right? Here's this dichotomy is still there. But what they don't tell you is the other percentage, the huge percentage of people that are either spiritual but not religious, or they are religious but they are looking for something that's not the traditional Orthodox way of doing things. All right? And this is what the author of this article is pointing out, that there's a huge percentage of people that still want a community. They want a place where they feel safe, where they can explore spirituality, but they've shed the old way of doing it. And as I was reading the article, I thought, let's see, this sounds really familiar. What major 18th century figure kind of called this many years ago when this happened? And I was reminded, and luckily I could find it because the new church search engine is back up online. I could Google it. I could look this up. Swedenborg, True Christianity, 784. And in that passage that Ellie read for us, it's the idea that the old churches, in some translation, I think, passing away, or that they're evolving and changing. Swedenborg wasn't saying that necessarily that he was on the earth to set up this brand new thing that would totally externally replace Catholicism or mainline Protestants. But he was hoping that their foundations would shift, that there would be an emphasis on new ideas that would replace the old. And on one hand, he talks about that. He also says that many of the religions are still going to be around, but there's going to be a shift in consciousness. There's going to be a new attitude that's going to happen. He witnessed the beginning of this, and we are living in it right now. And indeed, many of the polls that have been done see that spiritual people right now are interested in not being dogmatic, not following strict creeds, not having authorities telling you what you have to believe, accepting people of all different backgrounds in this very nice universal attitude. And I really feel like that is the new church. And Swedenborg and a few other individuals, but Swedenborg in particular, really highlighted this shift. Just to quote the article, is this here, where she mentions that people are looking for religion not from a monster in the sky or clergy that are telling you this is what you have to believe. But she says here, where is God? Not up there in heaven, she's saying, this emphasis on distant deity. God is here with us. Often unnoticed or misunderstood by commentators, even some religious leaders, a theological shift is happening around us, a revolution of divine nearness. People use new spiritual vocabulary to describe it. God is in the sunset, the seashore, in the gardens we plant, at home, in the work we do, in the games we play. When we eat, drink, and we are married with good food and good company. In the midst of the problems and challenges we face, a distant God is being replaced by a more intimate presence. Millions of people are experiencing God as more personal and accessible than ever before. This is not a romanticized greeting card divinity, but is a God who is robustly present in the chaos, suffering, confusion surrounding us, the Spirit who invites us to save the planet, make peace with the whole human family, and who is a companion and partner in creating a hope-filled future. This is the God that many are reaching towards, realizing that far-off God will not do. The God who is not with us, cannot be for us. The only God that makes sense is the God of compassion and empathy who shares the life of the world. And she goes on to talk about God is grounded. And I really, there's something about that image that I really enjoy. That God is grounded. God, he, she, it is with us as a force of love and wisdom. And I think last year I did a sermon on Meister Eckhart, concept of God being present, being so close to us here in our soul. And it's that connection that I think is something that we are striving for as individuals, but also our thirst for a community. When I read that part to Linda said, yeah, that's really how I appreciate the divine, is in nature, you know, and also a community. And we kind of sat there for a moment and we realized that some of that description really fits Hillside. You know, we are really blessed to have a nice community, a great community of all of us as seekers, and we're in this beautiful place with beautiful music and the scenery. So really you realize that Hillside is such an important place and really is a great example of what people are seeking right now. So my hope today is with the evidence of whether it's continued dialogue, research, polls, that people are shifting in this nice direction. We still have a long way to go. The Swedenborg was very clear that this wouldn't happen overnight. Second coming isn't something that boom, and suddenly, you know, as much as some of our fundamentalist brethren might think that it's going to be like a big cataclysmic thing that happens instantly, this is a process. It is an evolution. But we're all together in this evolution. And for that, I am very thankful. Amen.